Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 151 based on novel. So let's start. The Snow Empress smiled, and her smile was like a flower that bloomed everywhere across the icy plains. The soul beasts who didn't dare to even breathe heavily all exhaled in relief, because they could feel the Snow Empress' happiness at the same time. The Snow Empress raised her hand and placed it gently on the bear's enormous nose. She stroked it tenderly and said softly, "You've grown fat again, little Bai." Little Bai? This fellow is little? The corner of Huiyuhao's mouth twitched. Is he the Snow Empress' pet? The Ice Empress' voice rang out next to Huiyuhao's ear. The Snow Empress found Little Bai as a tiny ice bear when she first called herself queen, and he has been living with the Snow Empress ever since. It has been at least 200,000 years. Little Bai rules over his own domain now, but he's always treated the Snow Empress like a mother. That's the reason why I didn't let you harm his descendants. More than 200,000 years of cultivation, this meant the enormous ice bear in front of Huiyuhao could be considered a savage beast. The Ice Empress lowered her voice and said, "Little Bai's strength is comparable to that of the Titan Snow Devil King, but the Snow Empress asked him not to fight the Snow Devil King. Furthermore, he doesn't want to share the same status as the Snow Empress, and that's the reason why the outer world only knows about 3 of us, the extreme north's 3 heavenly kings." Huiyuhao nodded softly. He was full of complicated emotions. The Snow Empress' rising power was a good thing for him, but he felt as if she was getting further and further away from him. It seemed like the Snow Lady was never coming back. Little Bai seemed very blissful as the Snow Empress continued to caress him. He whimpered from time to time, and his enormous white buttocks would twitch again and again in bliss. Right at this moment, the circle of soul beasts that was several hundred meters thick separated once more as a gigantic figure appeared in Huiyuhao's vision. There was a whole patch of other enormous shadows that appeared along with the first one. The soul beasts that had formed a circle swiftly separated and opened a path for them. The enormous figure that was at the forefront strode into the inner circle. This figure looked a lot larger than the Ice Bear King, Little Bai. That was because this soul beast was just too tall. This soul beast was at least 120 meters tall. This was the largest species of soul beast that Huiyuhao had ever seen. Even the beast god wasn't that tall if he was prostrate. Furthermore, the beast god always showed himself in human form. What was even stranger was that this enormous, terrifying soul beast had a build that was very similar to that of humans. It had long and slender arms, and snowy white fur covered its entire body. Even its face had similar features to that of humans, except there were many wrinkles on its forehead, and its skin had a copper tint. It had 2 large fangs, and those 2 fangs showed its true colors as a soul beast. Huiyuhao didn't need the Ice Empress to explain for him to guess this species of soul beast, the Titan Snow Devils, that the Ice Empress had just mentioned. Only the Titan Snow Devils could have such enormous sizes. More importantly, the Titan Snow Devils were a community. There were more than 100 Titan Snow Devils behind this one. Even though they were not as tall as the first one, their average height was more than 80 meters. More than 10 of those who were exceptionally powerful were at least 100 meters tall, and their muscular frames seemed like they could hold up the skies. The other soul beasts that resided in the icy plains clearly created an even larger path when the Snow Devils came, and nobody dared to block their path. Snow Empress. The Titan Snow Devil King didn't continue forward once he entered the innermost circle. Instead, he knelt down onto the ground on a single knee and called out respectfully. He was speaking the human language, and he was the only soul beast that dared to actively address the Snow Empress directly amongst all the other soul beasts. He greeted the Snow Empress while he glanced at the Ice Bear King, who was lying down next to her, and the envy in his eyes was evident. The Snow Empress nodded at the Titan Snow Devil King and said, "Tai, it's been a long time." The Titan Snow Devil King hurriedly answered respectfully, "Yes. It's been long time, Snow Empress." "Ah. You're the Ice Empress?" His eyes quickly landed on the Ice Empress, who wasn't far behind the Snow Empress. The Ice Empress didn't hide her own aura, so she could be easily recognized. The Ice Empress nodded at the Titan Snow Devil King, but said nothing. The Snow Empress was there, so this wasn't the time for her to speak. The Snow Empress' authority and majesty in the extreme north was something that no soul beast would dare to violate. The Snow Empress said plainly, Tai, you can get up. All right. The Titan Snow Devil King acknowledged as he hurriedly got to his feet. The group of Titan Snow Devils behind him had already gotten down on their knees like dominoes long ago, and they all appeared as reverent as could be. The scene was just too mind-blowing. The Titan Snow Devil's tremendous size was absolutely unrivaled amongst ground-walking soul beasts. So many Titan Snow Devils kneeling was just too spectacular. The Snow Empress waved at the Titan Snow Devil and said, "Come, sit down beside me." All right, all right." The Titan Snow Devil King immediately ran over joyously to the Snow Empress' side. The disturbance he created was comparable to the Ice Bear King as he jogged over. Hui Yuhao witnessed a very amusing detail in this moment. The Ice Bear King was still enjoying the Snow Empress' caresses, but his eyes were closed into slits as he side-eyed the Titan Snow Devil King. The small part of his pupils clearly exuded disdain. It was evident that his relationship with the Titan Snow Devil King wasn't very amicable. Dong, 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 the Snow Devil King trod over to the Snow Empress and sat down with his legs crossed next to the bear. The Ice Bear King and the Snow Devil King were just too immense, and Hui Yuhao immediately felt as if another mountain appeared in front of him. The Snow Devil King didn't dare to mess around in front of the Snow Empress. However, he clearly touched the Ice Bear King's body when he sat down, and those two fellows shoved each other forcefully, but nobody got the better of each other. However, a series of cracking sounds could be heard on the tough ice beneath them. Such terrifying fellows! Hui Yuhao had made some rough judgments about the soul beasts in the extreme north over this period of observation. He realized that the soul beasts on the icy plains were much more cohesive and united compared to the Great Star Do Forest's soul beasts. Both the Ice Bear King and the Titan Snow Devil King were at the apex of the food chain in this place, but they still didn't dare to mess around in front of the Snow Empress at all. They submitted completely to the Snow Empress, and the other soul beasts did the same. The Snow Empress was a dictator, in the truest meaning of the word. The extreme north's overall strength perhaps wasn't sufficient to fight against the Great Star Do Forest, but that would only be the case if the battle happened in that region. If this battle happened in the extreme north, then Hui Yuhao was inclined to believe that the extreme north soul beasts were more likely to emerge victorious. After all, the environment in this place was far too vile for typical soul beasts. The Snow Empress said plainly, "All right, since almost everyone is here, we can begin. I haven't seen everyone in such a long time, and I am very happy to be back." Even though there wasn't a single hint of a smile on her face, the thousands of soul beasts immediately cried out in joy once she said those words. Deafening roars and sound waves forcefully tore the hurricanes apart across the icy plains. Every single soul beast grew excited, as if they were overcome with mass bloodlust. The Snow Empress gradually raised her right hand and pressed it against the air. The ear-splitting howls of thousands and thousands of soul beasts immediately stopped, and everything returned to silence. The Snow Empress eyed the Titan Snow Devil King beside her. The Snow Devil King could feel her gaze, and immediately lowered his head to curry favor with her. The Snow Empress said, "I have been in closed-door cultivation over these few years, and I have been working hard to break through the next bottleneck. Every one of you knows that I'm not young anymore, and I have been alive for far too long. Di Qian, the evil eye, and I have reached the end. The world of the future belongs to you. The extreme north is a paradise. The thing that has made me most content is peace in the extreme north. I have gathered everyone here for two important matters. First, I'm here to announce to everyone that I will be going into another episode of closed-door cultivation after meeting everyone here today, and I don't know how that will turn out. I am here to bid everyone farewell. It's very likely that this is the last time we will meet. Secondly, I'm here to appoint my successor." The Snow Empress' words caused an uproar across the extreme north soul beasts. The Snow Empress was the extreme north's divine guardian. The Snow Empress said that she could be leaving this world soon, and she wanted to attempt a very tough breakthrough. That was just unbelievable, and this was like a calamity for them. Forceful roars and howls could be heard as the Titan Snow Devil King suddenly got to his feet. He hammered his broad chest heavily, and his furious howls crackled so explosively that they suppressed the uproar from all the other soul beasts. A formidable aura mixed with boundless murderousness permeated the skies as the soul beasts who were just making a racket lowered their heads frightfully. However, that didn't cause their emotions to settle. The Snow Empress was God in the extreme north. Could the extreme north still be the same place without their god? The Titan Snow Devil King surveyed everyone coldly before he sat down beside the Snow Empress once more. The Snow Empress said plainly, "I declare that our Tai will succeed me from this moment onwards. He will become ruler of the extreme north, and you have to respect him like you respect me and listen to his orders, and you have to support him to maintain peace in the extreme north. Our Tai is a little rough and crude, but he is honest and sincere, and he is very honorable. He doesn't rely on his strength to overpower other species, and he is the most suitable candidate." The extreme north soul beasts were astonished once more once that was said. From the soul beast's perspective, only the Ice Empress could succeed the Snow Empress position. Furthermore, all the soul beasts in the extreme north knew that the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress were practically conjoined, and they shared a great relationship. Of the three heavenly kings, the first two heavenly kings could even match the beast god's prowess if they teamed up. If the battle was to occur here, the beast god would have to avoid them. The Snow Empress relinquishing her position as ruler over the extreme north was enough to shock them. The fact that she wanted to pass her position to the Titan Snow Devil King instead of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion was even more unbelievable for them. Even the Titan Snow Devil King himself widened his eyes and stared at the Snow Empress. He thought that she had made a mistake. The Snow Empress gazed back at the Snow Devil King and nodded in his direction to show him that her words rang true. "Snow Empress, the Snow Devil King's voice was clearly a little shaky. However, he wasn't shaky from excitement, but from grief. Only savage beasts knew what the Snow Empress arrangement meant. Her decision meant she wasn't confident of breaking through her next bottleneck, and that the Ice Empress was facing a similar situation. Otherwise, with the relationship between the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress, the Snow Empress would never pass her position to him." A faint smile appeared on the Snow Empress' face as she said, "Atai, you have accumulated much credit over these years, and you have truly grown up. I have been watching your every move from day to day, and I am very happy that you have been doing well over the years. This position has always been more suitable for you than the Ice Empress. Her personality is too strong, and her tribe isn't as dominant as the Titan Snow Devils. Therefore, I have always thought of you as my successor in my heart. You have to remember that even if I'm not around, the extreme north will still be the same. You have to be kind to every species, and you have to uphold my vision, that the extreme north has to be sufficiently united so that we will not be bullied and invaded by external enemies." Yes, large teardrops slipped from the Snow Devil King's eyes. The Snow Empress' instructions to him were something he had never expected. The Snow Empress passed her position to him, and that was sufficient to show her trust. He had always been delightfully willing under the Snow Empress' command. He couldn't help but feel sorrowful when he thought that the Snow Empress could reach the end of her life. The Ice Bear King, who was prostrate beside the Snow Empress, finally reopened his eyes and stared at the Titan Snow Devil King. There was a little bit of unwillingness in his eyes, and he didn't mask his emotions. However, the Snow Devil King's attention wasn't on the Ice Bear King in this moment. The Snow Empress said plainly, "Atai, and my other children. You must remember that my departure doesn't mean that I'm dead. If my attempt is unsuccessful, then there's nothing else to be said, but if I'm successful, then even Di Qian will never surpass me. My soul will always be in the extreme north whether or not I am successful, and I will always protect you. Anybody who violates the extreme north's rules is my enemy." Roar, 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 3 continuous roars erupted from the mass of soul beasts. All the soul beasts in the extreme north howled hysterically as they released the emotions in their hearts. The Titan Snow Devil King stood up once more and took a few steps back before he kneeled on both knees in front of the Snow Empress. He kowtowed, and his immense frame trembled continuously from the beginning to the end. Every single kowtow looked very sincere. The Snow Empress grinned as she nodded at the Snow Devil King. "You can stand up, Atai. There's something I need you to do before I leave." The Snow Devil King immediately raised his head and said reverently, "No matter when, only you control the extreme north, Snow Empress. Only you are ruler of the extreme north, and I trust that you will be back. I will guard this place for you when you're not around. I will await your return." The Titan Snow Devil King sobbed uncontrollably. The Snow Empress' expression changed as she witnessed his emotions. "All right. If I am successful, I will definitely return to visit. Perhaps that won't take too long." She turned around as she said that and glanced at Hui Yuhao, and her warm gaze stunned him momentarily. "All right, I have said all that needs to be said. Everyone can go. You can return and continue your lives. Any important matters in the icy plains in the future will be decided by our Tai." The Snow Empress floated into the air as she spoke, and she glided continuously and levitated silently high in the sky. The Snow Devil King hurriedly took a few steps forward and stood beneath her. The Snow Empress drifted down and landed on his broad shoulder. There were so many soul beasts in the icy plains, but not a single one moved. They just lay there, prostrate, and knelt and kowtowed at the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress stood on the Snow Devil King's shoulders and gradually turned around. Her eyes were covered with mist as she stared at her kinsman, who had followed her for so many years. "Go, my children. Let me watch you leave." The Snow Empress' voice traveled far into the distance. The soul beasts on the icy plains got up one after another as they listened to her orders, and they gradually dispersed. However, they would turn back after a few steps as they departed, and they stared at the old ruler of the extreme north with reluctant eyes. From this moment on, the three heavenly kings were no more, and all that was left was their new ruler. The Snow Empress just stood there quietly, and the Titan Snow Devil King was also motionless. The Ice Bear King stood up at the same time, and he was over 40 meters tall as he stood up straight. He was still much shorter than the Snow Devil King, but his muscularity was quite comparable. The Ice Bear King's silver fur flickered continuously, and fierce lights flashed in his eyes. He glanced at the Snow Devil King from time to time, and then at the soul beasts that were leaving in the distance. His emotions were clearly rippling. Hui Yuhao stood with the Ice Empress from the beginning to the end as he witnessed this succession of authority in the extreme north. He couldn't help but sigh with admiration at the Snow Empress. "Snow Empress, you are third of the 10 great savage beasts after all." A whole hour passed before all the soul beasts gradually departed, and the extreme north returned to tranquility. Only 2 tribes remained, the Ice Bears, and the Titan Snow Devil King. These 2 great tribes were some of the strongest ones across the extreme north. They were known as the 3 great tribes along with the Ice Jade Scorpions, and their overall strengths were most formidable. The Snow Empress' eyes were full of lament as she stood on the Snow Devil King's shoulder. After all, she had ruled over the extreme north for hundreds of thousands of years, and she still couldn't bear to leave this place forever. She had racked her brains back then so that she could recultivate and preserve her strength as much as possible, but she was taken away by a soul master who had ventured into the extreme north. That was the reason why everything that had happened afterwards happened, and she didn't have time to address anything to anybody back then. She managed to deal with her affairs in this moment, but she was still very reluctant in her heart. "Snow Empress." A deep and hoarse voice rang out that shook the Snow Empress awake from her thoughts. The Snow Empress looked down from the Snow Devil King's shoulders. She saw the Ice Bear King looking up at her, and he was staring at her with very sincere eyes. The Snow Empress tapped her foot on the Snow Devil King's shoulders and descended from the sky as she drifted to the ground. The Ice Bear King immediately lay down once more and pressed his enormous head against the ground. There was some pitifulness in his eyes, and there was also some exasperation as he stared at the Snow Empress. "Snow Empress," he called out once more. The Snow Empress ignored him. Instead, she turned towards the Snow Devil King and said, "Atai, you have just succeeded me as ruler of the extreme north. You have to personally placate the large tribes beneath you, and you have to establish authority and credit as quickly as possible. Go, I will wait 3 days for you here, and after 3 days, you shall bring your kinsman. There is something that I need you to do." "Yes, Snow Empress." The Titan Snow Devil King glanced at the Ice Bear King, and a thread of worry flashed across his eyes. However, he still followed the Snow Empress' instructions as he turned and left. The Snow Empress watched the Snow Devil King depart before she turned towards the Ice Bear King. "Snow Empress, what about me? What's going to happen to me?" The Ice Bear King only voiced his doubts in this moment. His kinsmen were quietly waiting in the distance, and even the Titan Snow Devils had departed along with the Snow Devil King. The Snow Empress said plainly, "As for you, of course I have my own arrangements. You shall just follow me, little Bai." "Eh?" The Ice Bear King was momentarily stunned. "Follow you? Aren't you going into closed-door cultivation?" The Snow Empress continued, "I will not be here in the extreme north anymore. Only your tribe is worthy of challenging our Tai. Even though our Tai's tribe is stronger overall, you might still have a chance of victory. Will you listen to him when I'm no longer around?" The Ice Bear King immediately went silent after hearing the Snow Empress question. He couldn't lie in front of the Snow Empress, so he could only respond with silence. The Snow Empress continued, "Therefore, only one of you may exist on the extreme north after my departure. Otherwise, peace in the extreme north will be very difficult to maintain." "Snow Empress!" The Ice Bear King cried out dejectedly. "All right, Snow Empress, I'll listen to you. You have bestowed life upon me, and you raised me so that I could become stronger, and you helped me become king of the extreme northern bears. You have given me everything I have, and your wish is my command. I will die if that's what you want." The Snow Empress laughed. "Silly, why would I want you to kill yourself? I chose Altai to become ruler of the extreme north after considering between you and him, and that's because his personality and the entire Titan Snow Devil tribe is more suitable than you and your tribe. However, he can never compare to you in terms of intimacy. You are like the Ice Empress in my heart, and you are my family. Ice is my sister, but you are my child." The Ice Bear King's eyes immediately softened when he heard her. He nudged his enormous nose against the Snow Empress' body and said, Snow Empress, what am I to do, exactly?" The Snow Empress heaved a sigh and said, "You will just follow me from now on. I can feel you are not far from your third bottleneck, and you only have a 30% chance of breaking through it. If I'm still around to protect you, perhaps you will be able to make it, but there's no way I can stay here to help you. Therefore, I hope that you can choose a different path with me." The Ice Bear King clearly didn't really understand the meaning of the Snow Empress' words. He stared at her confusedly, and didn't know what to say. The Snow Empress continued, "You will understand if you follow me after this. The path that I am looking at is one to become a god. If I am successful, then we will transcend this world, and we will no longer be threatened or affected by it. If we fail, then we have a chance to choose another. In the Dolor continent, no matter how strong our soul beasts are individually, there is no way we can touch the god realm. The reason for that is because that's the rule of this world. Di Qian is sufficiently powerful, but he still has no way of breaking this curse. If he can't, then I can't, and neither can you. Therefore, we can only attach ourselves to the strongest person in this world, and perhaps that person that will reach the god realm, and only then can we leave this world. I don't know about all that, Snow Empress, but I will follow you whatever you say." The Ice Bear King used the most direct method to express his trust in the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress turned around and waved at Hui Yuhao. "Come here, Yuhao." Hui Yuhao hurriedly stepped forward and came to the Snow Empress' side. The Snow Empress smiled and said, "Little Bai, let me introduce you. This is my father." Hui Yuhao was still digesting the shock and astonishment that he harbored towards the Snow Empress, and he didn't know why she was calling him. However, his entire being froze like a rock when she said that. "Father. What did she just call me? Father?" He was completely motionless at this point, as if his spiritual sea had turned into ice. More importantly, the Snow Empress' expression was extremely calm and casual when she said those words, as if she were describing something very normal. Hui Yuhao wasn't the only one. The Ice Bear King's expression was equally lackadaisical. There seemed to be a trail of snot flowing from his giant nose. Father. That term was equally unfamiliar to him. He didn't know who his father was, otherwise, he wouldn't have been taken away by the Snow Empress. But why would this term, Father, appear in the Snow Empress' mouth. The Snow Empress, she actually has a father? She has been alive for more than 700,000 years, and she's one of the oldest living beings in the world. How old does her father have to be? The Snow Empress stared at human and soul beast, who were stunned speechless and motionless. She couldn't help but laugh, and this wasn't just a grin, because she was laughing particularly joyfully. This was especially so when she was looking at Hui Hao, because it was evident that there was some teasing in her smile. The Ice Empress wasn't too far away from them, but she couldn't laugh at all. Her eyes were opened wide as her jaw hung open. She hadn't expected such words to come from the Snow Empress' mouth either. Daddy, what's wrong? The Snow Empress stared at Hui Hao with a captivating smile on her face. Hui Hao swallowed some saliva forcefully before he pointed at himself and said, You're calling me? You can't make a joke like this, Snow Empress. The Snow Empress rolled her eyes and said, Who's joking with you? I am calling you. Why do you not dare to acknowledge me? Have you forgotten? I have just passed my crown as the ruler of the extreme north to Artai, and since that moment, I am no longer queen in this place. I am no longer the Snow Empress, I am the Snow Lady that you have always protected, and the Snow Lady that has been growing up little by little. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect such a tremendous turnaround. He was just feeling sad about the distance between the Snow Empress and himself when she gave him such an enormous pleasant surprise. The Snow Empress' eyes grew tender. Yu Hao, I have recovered my memory, but everything that happened when we were together has long been imprinted in my memory in the period that my old memory was lost. I will never forget all the times that we have shared together, and in my heart, you are my father. This has nothing to do with age, and it's just a sentiment. Yes, it's just a sentiment. Her eyes grew a little sadder as she paused. Did you know? I was all alone when I came into this world, and this loneliness made my personality cold and icy. I am the Ice Sky Snow Lady that the heavens have nurtured and brought into this world, but even though the weakest soul beasts in the extreme north have their own parents, I have no parents. Rather, the extreme north is my parent. I have never experienced parental warmth or kindness. But I felt that from you. I can feel the love and care that you have for me. When I'm with you, even if you're just staring at me with a tender and amiable gaze, it makes me very happy. Even though I had yet to regain my memory back then, once I regained my memory, I realized that the period when I was with you was the happiest and most blissful part of my life. Therefore, I consider you my father in my heart, and that will never change. Ever since I've recovered my memory over these days, I can feel the worry in your heart. You don't have to fear anything. I am the Snow Empress, but I am your Snow Lady even more. I am more willing to be your Snow Lady. Daddy, are you willing to accept me as your daughter? The corner of Hui Hao's mouth began to twitch. Daughter, the Snow Empress, the Ice Sky Snow Lady, third amongst the 10 great savage beasts, and a soul beast with 700,000 years of cultivation. Gods! What has happened to this world? Even though he was full of yearning towards the Snow Empress before this, his first reaction when the Snow Empress was standing in front of him and saying to him plainly that she wanted to be his daughter wasn't happiness. He could almost feel his nose bleeding. That was just. The Snow Empress pouted and said, Daddy, do you not want me anymore? Then I will become a child with no home to return to. The Snow Empress was incredibly gorgeous from the beginning. Everything came from her heart, and even though she seemed like a lady who had grown up, her voice, eyes, and tone were no different from the little Snow Lady back then. Of course I do. Hui Hao sputtered. All right, then. The Snow Empress giggled as she pranced forward and wrapped her arms around Hui Hao's arm. I have been trying too hard to pretend after I've recovered my memory. I would rather be the Snow Lady. More accurately, the memory that belongs to the Snow Lady has allowed me to find myself. I am a little reluctant to give away my position as the ruler of the extreme north, but now I feel as if I have been liberated, and all my responsibilities are no more. I will live my life happily from today onwards, and that feeling is just fantastic. Isn't that right, Daddy? Hui Hao really wanted to ask her if she could stop calling him that. After all, they looked like they were of the same age. The Snow Empress calling him just made him feel very strange. The Ice Empress voice came from behind her. Snow, you're calling him father. What about me? The Snow Empress turned around and giggled at the Ice Empress. I don't care about that. I have already found your lover, Ice. Don't worry, we can do things differently. You have been addressing him by his name anyway. It hasn't been easy for me to find this familial love, Ice. Aren't you happy for me? Yes, of course I am happy, the Ice Empress forced a laugh, but this sudden change of events does make me feel a little weird. The Snow Empress chortled and said, there's nothing weird about this. I am still me, and I am still the same snow in your heart. Everything is fine if that hasn't changed. Little boy, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and greet your grandfather. Haven't you always wanted me to be your mother? All right, I am willing to accept you as my son. Grandfather, the Ice Bear King stared at Huayuhao with blank eyes. He could definitely tell that Huayuhao was a human. But the Snow Empress, whom he had endless respect for, actually called a human such as this her father. That was just. Huayuhao himself felt incredibly peculiar. He suddenly had a daughter today, and she felt like a very formal one, and now he had a grandson. He wasn't even married yet. He didn't know if he should laugh or cry. Everything was just so peculiar, but he couldn't not recognize the Snow Empress as his daughter. There's a good boy, the Snow Empress patted the Ice Bear King on his nose, and she waved her right hand across the air and pointed. A dark blue ice crystal hovered in front of the Ice Bear King. This is your grandfather's gift to you. The Ice Bear King was momentarily stunned. When he managed to see what was in front of him with clarity, his eyes immediately widened. That's manifold mysterious ice essence. The Snow Empress nodded and said, yes. How's that? Isn't your grandfather generous? Generous, yes. He's very generous. Greetings, grandfather. Thank you, grandfather. The way he addressed Huayuhao clearly sounded a lot smoother this time. The Ice Bear King stared at the manifold mysterious ice essence as he swallowed balls of saliva again and again, as if he were about to start drooling. However, before he could raise his paws to take it, the Snow Empress withdrew the ice crystal. You have to wait for a little while, you can't absorb it yet. This will be used to stabilize the origin of your consciousness. Let's do it this way, let me explain things to you as your mother. Ice, your aunt, and I have merged with your grandfather. Simply put, we have assimilated part of our power with your grandfather. You have already felt that your grandfather is a human. He is the most talented human in the world today. This video will end here.